morning, fellow Sooners. This is Mashonda McCauley doing her presentation. I chose out of the text is the progression vision, the answer for improving the U.S. school system. So I had to narrow it down because that could be a very broad subject. So what I did was I chose to do my presentation in my essay paper once the presentation is done on improving educational outcomes for poor children in the U.S. Some of the best practices in this issue. One of the best ways to avoid being poor as an adult is to obtain a good education. Yet, in this modern America, poor children face an elevated risk for a variety of adverse educational outcomes. According to the 2007 National Assessment of Education Progress, only 16% of fourth grade students eligible for free lunch score at proficient levels in reading, compared with 44% of fourth grade graders whose family incomes above the eligibility cutoff for free lunch. There's also a disparity in math scores between those for free lunch, and it's even larger. The class sizes reducing average class sizes may enable teachers to spend more time working with individual students, tailor instructions to teach children's needs, and make it easier for the teachers to monitor the classrooms and the children's behavior. Maybe bonuses for teaching in higher need schools or subject teachers who have higher scores on their SATs or various teaching exams are generally more effective than others. Changing school practices. Some low-cost changes in school operating practices that seem to improve student outcomes include chartered school organization, classroom instructions, teaching, hiring, and promotions. Now, some of the core issues with this topic, schools serving poor and minority students have fewer resources than they need. Yes, I get it. Government nouns in chaos, if you ask me, but in this case, a potential solution would be to provide more money to disadvantaged schools. High poverty schools lack the capacity to substantially improve student learning, independent of financial resources. A potential solution to this problem would involve helping schools improve the quality of the standard operating practice or increasing the instructional capacity of staff in these schools through professional development of more selective hiring. High poverty schools do not have sufficient incentives or flexibility to improve instruction. So without clarifying key objectives and holding key actors as accountable, additional spending will be squandered. Schools matter only so much. The real problem rests with the school context in which schools operate, namely the family neighborhood and peer environments that under this perspective make it difficult for low-income, poor children to take advantages of educational opportunities. So adopting accountability or market-oriented reforms without changing social policy more broadly will punish educators for factors beyond their control and potentially drive the most able teachers towards schools serving less disadvantaged students. Some pros in this issue. Over the past few decades, the technology of education policy evaluation has improved dramatically, making it much easier to detect moderately sized program impacts within the complex environment that determines the school outcomes. We've incorporated or implemented national school lunch programs for the free, reduced, or full price, depending on status and income of the families. Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. That's a pro. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 also has benefited a lot of students in the U.S. today. Some negative or some cons on this issue of the poor children and their educational needs or background. Disagreements about how to improve schooling outcomes for the poor children stem in part from different beliefs about the problems that underlie the unsatisfactory outcomes in many of our nation's public schools. Not everything works, and we know that and we get that. But many current and proposed educational policies either have no empirical support for their effectiveness or in some cases have strong empirical evidence for their ineffectiveness. Accountability, schools that make adequate yearly progress and those that do not. So we hold these educators accountable, but sometimes it's a little difficult when they don't have the provided or the best resources in place to provide a good education for the children. The No Child Left Behind is in place, but the states can choose their own test and their own minimum scores for achieving proficiency. Encourage states to make their tests relatively undemanding and to set low minimum scores. So the schools can set their own tests. So it's kind of like if they can kind of like alter the numbers, in my opinion. This topic directly relates to diversity and social justice. There's an injustice in providing a good education for poor children. It's like they just provide enough so they can get by. The topic relates to diversity and social justice because it's centered upon improving educational outcomes for poor children. The dominant and subordinate groups involved in this issue are the public schools, of course, the poor underprivileged children, the teachers, and the lawmakers in education practices. The power and resources at stake will be access to an equal and fair and just education for all, improving education policies to standardize and educate everyone's children, not just the poor. I chose in my opinion, awesome champion for this issue in doing some extensive research because there's so many organizations out there that do support and try to help the underprivileged or poor children that struggle with getting a good education in the U.S. today. I was going to use Michelle Obama as my champion, but as the First Lady, yes, she supported it and spoke on it and reiterated to America, about children and education as well as their health. But the champion I chose was Stand for Children. Stand for Children is an American advocacy group founded in 1966 following a Children's Defense Fund rally. The nonprofit advocates for changes in public education. Over the years, The organization has shifted its focus from children's issues to improving public funding and from funding to improving the public education system. The organization includes both an advocacy organization called Stand for Children, as well as a training organization called Stand for Children Leadership Center. Stand for Children's mission is to ensure that all children, regardless of their background, graduate from high school prepared for and with access to a college education. They educate and empower parents, teachers, the community members to demand excellent public books. They advocate for effective local, state, and national education policies and investments. This advocacy group ensures the policy and funding advocated for each classroom and helps students. They elect courageous leaders who shall stand up for their priorities. Awesome, awesome organization. Some of their stances and their best practices. Quality for pre-K for all. Stand Tennessee helped to create and expand and protect Tennessee's volunteer pre-K program, which serves over 18,000 students in 935 classrooms across 135 districts statewide. Reading by third grade. Stand Colorado helped to pass the READ Act to ensure interventions are available for early readers who need support. High standards and expectations for our students or their students. Stand officers protected high academic standards by defending misguided legislative attacks on Common Core in Arizona, Colorado, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Massachusetts. Access to high-quality schools. Stand Indiana members were tireless advocates for the HEA 1321, which allowed for low-performing Indianapolis public schools to have a turnaround policy focused on building quality options in all Indianapolis neighborhoods. Longer day schools. Stand Illinois advocated for a longer school day year for the Chicago Public Schools, which had the shortest school day in the nation, added 90 minutes per day and 2 weeks per year of instruction for just under 400,000 students. So they've been advocating and doing some amazing things in this world. My views for Stand for Children. Stand for Children is really a champion for the children. I was blown away from the stances and the best practices of this advocacy group. It's truly amazing how people take the time out of their lives to make sure another group of people, whether it's children, adults, etc., but in this case, children, literally strangers, they are supported and taken care of in this society. I'm really impressed with this group and excited that I chose them as my champion on this issue. And I can't wait to do further extensive research for my essay. This is my issue. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.